Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. The topic of this 10-minute moan is a woman who was to be deported back to the Caribbean has now been granted stay because her husband doesn't like spicy food. And this is just one of a continued number, can't even remember, I've lost count of the amount of videos I've done recently where we have had people who should have been deported, but they're not because of the most bonkers reasons you've ever heard. Now, this story is in the Mail Online. It's an exclusive they have with the headline Caribbean woman staying in the UK illegally claims she can't be deported to Grenada as her Latvian husband won't be able to cope with spicy food. A woman from the Caribbean staying illegally in the United Kingdom who says one of the reasons she can't be deported is because her Latvian-born husband doesn't like spicy food today insisted there's a big difference between liking the odd curry and having hot meals constantly in a humid country. Lynthia made headlines this week after it emerged she had cited her Latvian forklift truck driver husband finding the local cuisine unpalatable as a reason to avoid being deported to her native Grenada. And today, speaking exclusively to the Mail Online, Lynthia and husband Konstantin Vinakovs doubled down on the spicy food argument. But there is a big difference between going for the odd Grenadian dish and spending 2 weeks in the sun to having that sort of spicy food constantly in an environment which is hot and humid, practically 24/7. Lynthia only had permission to stay in Britain for 6 months when she jetted in to visit us with her son, in March 2018. But she stayed illegally in the UK after her visitor visa expired. She then met and later married Mr. Vinakovs, who, unlike her, has a permanent settled status in the United Kingdom. Now, using her married name, Mrs. Vinakovs, Lynthia then applied for a marital visa, which would allow her to reside here, prompting the Home Office to launch an investigation. Then there's some nice photos of a lovely couple. She's now fighting resulting moves to deport her from the UK back to her native Grenada by arguing that separating her from her husband would breach Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Our own old favourite here, Article 8, pulled out all the time, and her right to have a family life. When Home Office officials told Lynthia that this was not a good enough reason for her to reside here as her husband could just as easily join her in Grenada, the mother of one pushed back, saying it would cause too much hassle for his family to fly to the Caribbean to visit him. She argued her husband would be unable to tolerate the cuisine in Grenada and worries that the heat of the tropical island would be too much for him. I'd maybe marry her. She also said that she can't go back to Grenada because she has a violent former partner who represents a threat to her life. But when the social media pictures emerged that appeared to show her cooking Grenadan dishes at home and him posting photographs of a previous sun-drenched holidays, critics ridiculed her case. And this was details that caused her story to make headlines around Britain. Speaking to her from her Cambridgeshire home today, she qualified her case, explaining what I said was that he would find it difficult to adjust coming from relatively cooler climate to a very hot one. And the same with the food. For some reason, that was picked up on by the media following my last immigration hearing. Mr. Vinakovs agreed with his wife's argument, saying, "My wife does sometimes cook Grenadian food, but apart from a chicken dish, she does. I'm not particularly keen in the cuisine." It's a wee shame, innit? That's a wee shame, that. Imagine that. And yes, I have been on holiday to hot places like Tenerife for 2 weeks. I can enjoy the sun and heat, but I'd struggle to live somewhere like Grenada. Mr. Vinakovs, who she married in 2022 after meeting him in Britain, is supporting her case and insists he does not want to move to Grenada and be forced to give up forklift driving, the job he has held for 10 years. He's do not have forklifts in the Caribbean. He added that Britain is also much cheaper and easier for his mother and sister, who still live in Latvia, to visit than thousands of miles away in the Caribbean. But Lindsay, why not just go to Latvia then? But Lynthia and her husband are adamant that the issue of spicy food and hot temperature was only a number of reasons she'd put forward in her case. And the most serious was that she originally fled the island because of her violent and abusive ex-partner, who she feared she might be at risk from again if she were forced to return. Mrs. Villanakovs also claimed that she now has no home to go back to because a hurricane destroyed her family house on the island last September. So she's been here, when last September came, she'd been here 6 years. Who'd been in the house then? Where do they live now? The reason I came to England was because of an ex-partner was violent towards me. When we broke up, he did not take it well and continued to harass and stalk me at work. I got some money together and came to England to get away from him so I could get some space. I stayed with a friend initially, but then my son moved over here a year later and we got a place together. I fear that if I go back, my ex will target me again. Plus, my family home, the place where I grew up, is no longer standing. It was destroyed in a hurricane which hit Grenada last September. My brother sent me photographs of the rubble. There is no home for me to go back to. Mrs. Villanakovs initially moved to Stevenage in Hertfordshire when she arrived in March 2018 on a 6-month visitor visa and stayed with a friend. After her son, now aged 14, so hold on a minute, we get back 6 years, so he was 8 at the time, so she's left him, right? He's been parked. He was left in Grenada when she came here, then he joined her. He moved over to the UK to join her in December 2019. The pair set up a home in Rugby, Staffordshire, after she met Mr. Villanakovs on a dating app. A few months after arriving in Britain, they eventually set up home together in Cambridgeshire, where they still live. They married in 2022 at a registry office, and Mrs. Villanakovs applied for a marital visa, which then prompted the Home Office to launch the investigation into her immigration status. Her case was initially thrown out during the first tier immigration tribunal in November, but she's now appealed to the upper tier court. She is allowed to remain in the UK until she's exhausted all stages of her latest appeal effort. Mrs. Villanakovs added, I have built a family in England. No, you've not. You've married again. All the stress and upheaval of moving back to Grenada would be too much, not just for me, but my son, who is now studying for his GCSEs. His life, our life, is now in England. The previous court hearing, the tribunal found that Mrs. Villanakovs regularly ate his wife's Caribbean food, with the judge claiming the Latvian apparently had no particular difficulty with any one style of cuisine. Judge Mark Blundell, who oversaw the hearing, also claimed there was no evidence to show that the heat in Grenada would be particularly difficult for him. Social media accounts seen by the Mail Online appear to show him enjoying jet skiing rides in the tropical sun. Judge Blundell said there was no evidence they would be unable to live and work in the temperatures which are enjoyed by those who holiday on the island. However, Mr. Villanakovs said, I've been in England for the last 10 years. I paid taxes throughout and worked hard. I've paid all my wife's legal bills. I've been in an incredibly expensive process. Why should I have to leave at all? I have worked for. My job is here. My friends are here. Grenada is a tiny island. There just aren't the sort of employment opportunities that are here. If I go to the Caribbean with my wife, I wouldn't see my mother or sister. At the moment, it's easy for them to visit the UK because it costs about £50 and takes 3 hours. To visit Grenada would cost them thousands. It would take more than 15 hours on a plane. They couldn't do that. What a lot of nonsense. Now, there was something that I read there about her son. I thought she came to visit her son. I thought it said that at the top of the story. So let me just... It says, Lynthia only had permission to stay in Britain for 6 months when she jetted in with her son in March 2018. Then it says down the bottom that he joined her in 2019. So she wasn't here visiting her son, she wasn't here with her son. She came here, obviously stayed with her pal to start with. Then she's found a man, a Latvian, with a UK right to stay and try to jump the bandwagon. So, there you go. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe and the notification bell. Put your comments below, please. Always enjoy that. And if you're new to the channel, YouTube will put in this box down here a video that they think you'll like. Please tick it. But, most importantly of all, unless you're the type of person who comes to Britain and pulls on Article 8 all the time, they all do it, try to remain here when they've came here illegally in the first place, not you. But
everyone else Have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.